Hi, this is Ophoria, the digital reader, and this is the books that I bought and the books that I read in the month of December. Let's start out with the books that I bought in December. The Archer's Tale by Bernard Cornwell. A brutal raid on the quiet coastal English village of Hookton in 1342 leaves but one survivor, a young archer named Thomas. On this terrible dawn, his purpose becomes clear: to recover a stolen sacred relic and pursue to the ends of the earth the murderous black-clad knight bearing a blue and yellow standard, a journey that leads him to the courageous rescue of a beautiful Frenchwoman and sets him on his ultimate quest, the search for the Holy Grail. The Bells by Richard Harvell. This book has been sitting in my Barnes & Noble's account for a while, so I figured I'd read this one just to say, okay, I've read it, I can finally delete it. But I ended up really loving it, so much so that I actually went out and bought myself a copy on Kobo. I'll talk more about my thoughts on it and give a summary when I cover the books I read in December, which is why I'm not doing that right now. I'll be coming back to it in just a few minutes. Alright, next book. Redwall by Brian Jacques. Welcome to the Mossflower Wood, where the gentle mice have gathered to celebrate a year of peace and abundance. All is well until a sinister shadow falls across the ancient stone abbey of Redwall. It is rumored that Clooney is coming. Clooney, the terrible one-eyed rat and his savage horde. Clooney, who has vowed to conquer Redwall Abbey. The only hope for the besieged mice lies in the lost sword of the legendary Martin the Warrior. And so begins the epic quest of a bumbling young apprentice, a courageous mouse who would rise up, fight back, and become a legend himself. An Honourable Thief by Douglas Skelton. 1715. Jonas Flint, ex-soldier and reluctant member of the Company of Rogues, a shady intelligence group run by ruthless spymaster Nathaniel Charters, is ordered to recover a missing document. Its contents could prove devastating in the wrong hands. On her deathbed, the late Queen Anne may have promised the nation to her half-brother James, the old pretender, rather than the new king, George I. But the will has been lost. It may decide the fate of the nation. The crown must recover it at all costs. The trail takes Jonas from the dark and dangerous streets of London to an Edinburgh in chaos. He soon realizes there are others on the hunt and becomes embroiled in a long overdue family reunion, a jailbreak, and a brutal street riot. When secrets finally come to light about the crown and about his past, Jonas will learn that some truths once discovered can never be untold. Naked City, edited by Ellen Datlow. In this thrilling collection of original stories, some of today's hottest paranormal authors delight, thrill, and captivate readers with otherworldly tales of magic and mischief. In Jim Butcher's Curses, Harry Dresden investigates how to lift the curse laid by the fair folk on the Chicago Cubs. In Patricia Briggs' Fairy Gifts, a vampire is called home by magic to save the fae who freed him from a dark curse. In Melissa Marr's Guns for the Dead, the newly dead Frankie Lee seeks a job in the afterlife on the wrong side of the law. In Holly Black's Noble Rot, a dying rock star discovers that the young woman who brings him food every day has some strange appetites of her own. And now for the books I read in December. The Bells by Richard Harvell. The celebrated opera singer Lo Svizzero was born in a belfry high in the Swiss Alps, where his mother kept the loudest and most beautiful bells in the land. Cradled in their thunder and song, young Moses Froben grew with an uncanny gift for sound. But when his preternatural hearing revealed the hidden sins of the church, he was cast out, sent into a perilous world with nothing but his ears to guide him. Saved from death by two wandering monks, Moses finds sanctuary within the vast abbey of St. Gall. There, under the tutelage of the brilliant yet grotesque choirmaster Ulrich, his gift deepens and becomes his curse. He must conceal his secret from his friends and from the girl he loves. When his protectors are exiled and his beloved is sent to Vienna for an arranged marriage, Moses can no longer deny his true voice. He follows, toward the splendor of Vienna, towards the monks who saved him, towards Europe's greatest stage, and toward the birth of one of history's most enduring operas. The Bells by Richard Harvell was an incredible book, sad and beautiful in equal measure. It really hit me emotionally and reminded me of Songmaster by Orson Scott Card, a book I read about 45 years ago. I don't even remember the plot of Songmaster anymore. I just remember how it made me feel. So much so that I've now added Songmaster to my 2026 TBR. I remember being about 15 or 16 and feeling close to tears while reading it. At that point in my life, it was one of the most emotionally powerful books I'd ever read. The Bells is a tough story with a lot of sadness, but it's also full of beauty. It also confirms something I've been discovering recently. Historical fiction has quickly become one of my favorite subgenres because these are the books that stay with me the longest. This isn't sci-fi, fantasy, or hero-driven fiction, which are my typical favorites, but it's straight historical fiction, and while it feels almost fairy tale-like emotionally, there's no mysticism or fantasy involved. I can't recommend The Bells enough. 5 stars. Choose Your Enemies Carefully by Robert N. Charrette. When magic returns to the earth, its power calls Sam Verner. As Sam searches for his sister through the dark and dangerous streets of 2050, his quest leads him across the ocean to England, where druids rule the land and the throne. But all is not what it seems, and Sam and his new shadow friends are plunged into a maze of madness on the trail of a sinister cult plotting to create wanton destruction. Only when Sam accepts his destiny as a shaman can he embrace the power he needs. But what waits for him in the final confrontation of technology and human flesh is a secret much darker than anything waiting in the shadows. Choose Your Enemies Carefully by Robert Charrette is the second book in the Secrets of Power trilogy, the first 3 Shadowrun novels ever written. I originally read these about 20 to 25 years ago, so I'm rereading the trilogy now. Unfortunately, this book was a disappointment. It feels like a classic middle book problem. Tacked on, padded out, and not doing enough to move the story forward. It doesn't really deepen the characters or expand the plot in a meaningful way, and it lacks a lot of the cyberpunk mysticism and Shadowrun vibe that I expect from the series. That said, it's not badly written, and it's not so bad that you'd quit reading. It's just kind of boring. There are only a handful of chapters that feel like they truly matter. I thought the first book was great, and I'm definitely reading the third book because that's where I'm hoping everything finally comes together. I'm giving this one 2 stars. It's a book you read to get through the trilogy, not essential, but probably can't hurt to read all 3 books. Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo. Soldier, Summoner, Saint. Alina Starkov's power has grown, but not without a price. She is the Sun Summoner, hunted across the true sea, haunted by the lives she took on the Shadowfold. But she and Mal can't outrun their enemies for long. The Darkling is more determined than ever to claim Alina's magic and to use it to take the Ravkin throne. With nowhere else to run, Alina enlists the help of an infamous privateer and sets out to lead the Grisha army. But as the truth of Alina's destiny unfolds, she slips deeper into the Darkling's deadly game of forbidden magic and further away from her humanity. To save her country, Alina will have to choose between her power and the love she thought would always be her shelter. No victory can come without sacrifice, and only she can face the oncoming storm. I've kind of realized lately that I'm getting a little burned out on stories about the plucky female heroine in a dystopian world who's stuck in an angst-filled romance with the incredibly popular, attractive guy. Maybe that's just me, but the Poppy War was only okay. It didn't really do much for me. I did enjoy Mistborn, though mostly because the characters have more layers and weren't driven purely by angst. But Siege and Storm, the second book in the Shadow and Bone trilogy, still leans heavily into that young, self-doubting, emotionally driven heroine trope. But I have to give credit where credit's due. This book is well written. I really liked the world building, and I especially appreciated the Russian-inspired setting. So often fantasy leans Western or more recently Asian-inspired, so this felt refreshing. Even though I'm starting to burn out on this type of storyline, I still think this was a good book, so I'm giving it 4 stars. Going forward, I'll probably just be a little bit more selective so I don't completely burn out on the subgenre, because when these stories are well done, they really can work. Excalibur by Bernard Cornwell. In this riveting final volume of the Warlord Chronicles, Cornwell tells the unforgettable tale of Arthur's final struggles against the Saxons and his last attempts to triumph over a ruined marriage and ravaged dreams. This is the tale not only of a broken love remade, but also of forces both earthly and unearthly that threaten everything Arthur stands for. Peopled by princesses and bards, by warriors and magicians, Excalibur is the story of love, war, loyalty, and betrayal. Excalibur is the final book in Bernard Cornwell's Warlord Chronicles, also known as the Winter King series, and it was magnificent. Honestly, all 3 books in this trilogy were outstanding. If you love King Arthur, historical fiction, and low magic settings, this series absolutely delivers. The ending in particular is great. The way everything slowly unravels and comes apart at the end of Arthur's saga just works beautifully for me. This is the best trilogy I've read since Dune, and yes, I'm talking about the first 3 books of Dune. I'm a purist, and I feel everything after Children of Dune starts to lose focus. The Winter King trilogy is honestly so good, I felt like I could start reading it all over again immediately. Instead, I started looking into Bernard Cornwell's other work. I just got The Archer's Tale, book 1 in the Grail Quest trilogy, and plan to read it in 2026 to see if his writing is consistently this strong. As for Excalibur, easy 5 stars. So to recap what I bought and what I read in December. What I got this month: The Archer's Tale by Bernard Cornwell, The Bells by Richard Harvell, Redwall by Brian Jacques, An Honourable Thief by Douglas Skelton, Naked City edited by Ellen Datlow, and what I read this month. I read The Bells by Richard Harvell. I gave that 5 stars. I read Choose Your Enemies Carefully by Robert N. Charrette. I gave that 2 stars. I read Siege and Storm by Leigh Bardugo, and I gave that 4 stars. And I read Excalibur by Bernard Cornwell, and I gave that 5 stars. So that's everything I bought and everything I read in December. This is Ofori, the digital reader, and keep reading.